In the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect, we recognize that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across Canada. We also wish to acknowledge that the Catalyst Plus office in Toronto is located on the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. In Montreal, our office is located on the unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka. So let's dive in. We are very glad to be able to continue hosting regular sessions of the meetups in both English and French. Today's the English one. Tomorrow we will host a French session. My name is Per Grafland, and I'm the manager of volunteer services at Catalyst Plus, and I'll be your moderator today. So I do want to start off by saying that a part of today's session will be recorded, as you just saw. This is just the first hour with the presentations of our speakers and the Q&A sessions. So this means that if you ask a question with your video on, then it will show in the recording. But if not, it's only going to show the speaker in the video. So if you wish to turn off your cameras, you can do that now or at any point during this session. So I want to thank you all again for taking the time to be part of this meetup. We're always really excited and happy to have the opportunity to do face-to-face meeting with advisors and others who are interested in our programs, even if it's virtual. So if you are new to Catalyst Plus or to the meetups, the purpose of these sessions is to provide an opportunity to our advisors to share information experiences with each other. And it's also an opportunity for you to learn more about Catalyst Plus programs and processes, because things always evolve. In addition, you can always also network with one another, and each session will have one or more focus points. So we're excited to be able to host a couple of sessions each year and focus on different things. For today's session, our spotlight will be on the assignment format of phased assignments. We've invited Jane Imai, Senior Program Manager for International Services for Asia at Catalyst Plus, to share with us more information about phased assignments in Asia and to learn about the benefits of this assignment format. Following Jane, we will hear from Ginette Johnston, our experienced Catalyst Plus advisor, on her experience with phased assignments in Cambodia and St. Lucia. I'd also like to introduce the volunteer services team who's helping today with running this meetup. So we have Pilar Albareda, she's a volunteer services officer. She'll be operating the chat box. And we also have Ashna Faroz, volunteer services officer, and Magda Shishko, senior volunteer services officer, who will be doing technical support. In addition, we have a couple of other staff members on this session today as well. Okay. So we will start today with a presentation by Jane, followed by a Q&A session where you can ask any questions you may have regarding her program in Asia. Then we will hear from Ginette, and we'll have also a Q&A session after her presentation. Both the presentations and Q&A sessions will be recorded as mentioned. That will conclude the formal session, and then we will have 30 minutes of networking in breakout rooms. The networking sessions are informal, and it's completely optional if you'd like to stay for it or leave after that. Before we start, a couple of small housekeeping things. So please keep your mic muted when you're not speaking, and switch on and off your video as preferred. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can either hold on to them or you can put them in the chat box. Once the presentation is finished, I will go through all of the questions and we will be able to answer them. You can also ask a question, and if you want to do so, please just raise your hand and we'll give you the mic, the virtual mic. Before you speak, please briefly introduce yourself and keep your question short, and be concise and respectful to other participants. Wonderful. So I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Jane Imai. So Jane is our Senior Program Manager at Catalyst Plus, and she leads a capacity building projects in Southeast Asia focused on gender equality. And she has experience in the not-profit, corporate, and public sectors. She previously worked at Finca and Kiva.org, managing microfinance programs and promoting financial inclusion. Her diverse career includes roles at Statistics Canada, the Inter-American Development Bank, Goldman Sachs, and the Ministry of Finance. Jane holds a bachelor's in economics and master's in international affairs, who speaks 5 languages, and has implemented programs in 17 countries across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, having lived in 5 of them. All right, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jane. Over to you. I will now stop sharing the screen so you can do that.
Okay, thanks, Puck. So I will just get my slides up. And can you let me know if you guys see those okay?
All good.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So thank you so much, Puck, for the introduction, to the VS team for running this event. I'm really excited to be here with you, our advisors, today. And I really hope you enjoy the event and get some useful information about it, and also enjoy the networking portion afterwards. So as Becca and Puck mentioned, I'm just going to be telling you a little bit about our phased assignments format. Just what are they all about? What do they mean for you as CAs? I have a couple of examples to share with you, and then at the end we have a little video, which is a bit of a testimonial from one of our partners who's undertaken a phased assignment. So I'll just go ahead and jump right in. So first of all, what are phased assignments? Well, it's basically just a series of assignments that has at least one virtual and one in-person component, which we call phases. Phased assignments really came about sort of organically, often to meet the needs of our partners. We found ourselves facing different circumstances that required us to be flexible so that we could accommodate the schedules of both our partners and our CAs as best we could. And as many of you may know, one of the hallmarks, let's say, of international development projects is the need to be constantly flexible and adaptable and to evolve with the changing circumstances. So we found that this format seemed to make sense for these different situations. And as we started implementing this format more regularly, we realized that we needed to establish some more specific sort of guidelines that define more clearly exactly what constituted a phased assignment. And this has more implications or bearings, to be honest, more for like internal purposes, because it has a bearing on how we go about doing our recruitment, how we go about doing our data collection and monitoring. So it's been important for us to define in terms of our internal processes. For you, our CAs, I think it's not going to be too earth-shattering in terms of like changing the way that you go about doing your work with assignments, but this is just giving you a general idea of how they work and what they will mean for you. So the parameters that define phased assignments are as follows. So first of all, the topics in each phase must be very closely related. There's only one CA that's involved. There's only one partner that's involved, unless it's a group assignment. And ideally, there shouldn't be more than 1 month between phases. And this last point is because normally we try to collect our assignment reports and our feedback forms from you within about a month or so of the assignment's completion. And this is just to help us ensure that the information stays fresh in everyone's minds. And if we find that, one of these parameters are not met to be called a phased assignment, then no problem. We'll just go about the way we normally operate, which is to treat each assignment individually. So for you, our advisors, what does this mean? Well, if you are selected to undertake an assignment that's in phases, you will be required to complete all phases of the assignment. When you look at the assignment profile on my Catalyst Plus, the assignment will indicate in the purpose field that it's phased. So you'll see a little note that says it's part 1 or part 2, and this will be your cue to go and find the other related assignments so that you can look at them all together and assess whether or not it's something that you'd like to apply for. And you can develop just one work plan with the partner. That's fine, as long as the there's distinct activities that are defined in each phase. What else do they mean for you? Well, the good news is that at the completion of the last phase, you'll only be asked to fill out one assignment report and one feedback form. What we would ask, though, is that you try to capture the nuances of each phase as best you can. So, for example, we'd like to know the details about the work that was done in each phase. We would also like to know how many people participated in each phase. And this might differ, whether you're working virtually or in person. And all of this is just helping us to better understand the work that was done. And again, it's going to allow us to capture the results of each assignment and monitor that more accurately, more closely. So I mentioned I've got a couple of examples. The first one is with our partner called PRIC MBC in the Philippines. And the purpose of the assignment was to develop a customized point of sales automated management system for them. So you can see here, it's an example of an assignment with two phases, where phase one was done virtually over the course of about 8 weeks. And in this phase, our advisor developed the customized system for them. And it's a system that enables our partner to monitor and control their operations more easily and efficiently. And then in phase two, which is actually taking place in country now, it's an assignment that's approximately 2 weeks long. And now the advisor is training the partner on how to implement that system so that they're able to run it, modify it, and manage it on their own. So again, you can see how these two phases are very closely linked in terms of the work that's being done. It's not, someone working with a partner on, for example, strategy and then on marketing or human resources. Those topics are not really closely related. So this is a good example of why we considered it phased. And in my second example, this is actually the assignment that was undertaken by our advisor, Ginette. So she's going to be talking about that in more detail. I'll just mention a couple of points to highlight. So it was done with our partner, the Ministry of Women's Affairs in Cambodia. Its purpose was to build their capacity to help them better formulate gender policies. And what I wanted to mention here is that you'll see that in this case, it's an example of an assignment that was done in 3 phases. So virtually, in country, and then virtually. And what you might be aware of as advisors is that normally we can allocate 10 days, what we call pre and post assignment days. So it's time that allows you to make preparations for your trip before your departure from Canada. And then when you return to Canada, it allows you to complete final tasks like your expense reports, once you're back. And you probably know that this time allocation can also be used to prepare and complete assignment-related tasks. But what we find sometimes is that 10 days is not enough time for all of this. So sometimes if there's specific work to be done, either again before or after the assignment, sometimes it's helpful to carve that out into its own separate block of time in terms of a virtual assignment. The second point I just wanted to note here is that we know that advisors and partners often continue their communications after the assignment ends, but these communications are often informal, and we think that's wonderful. That's great. It's something we want to encourage, to continue building the relationship. But what we're finding is that sometimes when there's specific tasks to be done from Canada, creating a virtual assignment would allow us to better measure, to better capture the actual tasks that were done, to better measure the results of your work, and then also capture the time that you spend on the assignment. These are all important metrics for us as a program. We need to report on them to the donor. So again, very important for us to be able to track that. So lastly, I'm just going to touch a little bit on some of the benefits of phased assignments. We think there's various benefits related to this kind of approach. One of the most important being that it allows our advisors and our partners to build stronger and deeper relationships over a longer period of time. So if you have a virtual phase prior to your deployment in country, we think it will allow you and the partner to get to know each other better, to create a stronger mutual understanding about the needs and expectations of the work you'll be doing together. And you might also find that it allows you to not be so rushed to complete the assignment during your short stay in country. You may have found sometimes that, by the time you arrive in the country where you'll be working, the first day, maybe first few days might be just about, getting to know the people in the organization you're going to be working with, who they are, how the organization works, and then just trying to get into like a good rhythm of work, right? So sometimes within a short-term assignment, you might be a bit more crunched for time in that sense. So being able to start that relationship virtually beforehand could be beneficial. And if a virtual assignment or a virtual phase takes place after you return to Canada, you'll be able to continue building on the work that you've done, just in a slightly more formal way. And what we found is that in some cases, adding a virtual component to an in-country assignment can also mean a more flexible and convenient schedule, both for yourselves as our advisors, but also our partners. And for our partners, it could mean that they get more opportunities for their participants to join in on the learning. Now, I recognize that sometimes virtual assignments can come with their own set of challenges. I just want to add the perspective from our partners, which is that we have, partners and country contexts where virtual assignments actually add a tremendous amount of value. We have people who may not be able to actually access skills and knowledge in any other way except through a virtual assignment. And so, to have advisors who are willing and able to consider doing assignments virtually has a tremendous impact for our partners. I think more than you might imagine. So virtual assignments is probably a conversation maybe for another day. I could do a whole separate presentation on them because we've had circumstances in Asia where they've been really beneficial. So I'll leave it there for now. And I just want to say, in terms of phased assignments, just finally, I think from a programmatic or organizational perspective, it's really helpful to have this phased format because it allows us to deepen our support for our partners while minimizing our project expenses. So we do think that the phased assignment approach can create a collaboration with a partner that's more effective. We think we're more rewarding and hopefully more successful overall. So that's it. I'm happy to take any questions. If you have any, I hope you learned something about how phased assignments work. But first, I think we want to show you the video that I mentioned. So Magda's gonna show that for us.
Can you please give me a thumbs up once you see my screen? Wonderful. And please let me know if you cannot hear it and can try again.
Hello, my name is Bonavi. I am a Deputy Director of Ministry of Women Affairs, Cambodia. We are pleased to be partnering with Catalyste Plus to empower women and generate effective improvements toward economic growth and equality in Cambodia. We have benefited from working with our Catalyste Plus advisor over multiple phases because the selected advisors are very professional, expertise in the field that is required. From one advisor to another, we have received many knowledge, advice, recommendation, feedback, and coaching and support to make sure that after each assignment, participants can implement that knowledge into use with their daily work. And more importantly, thanks to our work with Catalyste Plus, we are better able to promote gender equality and women empowerment across Cambodia with the usage of media and digital platforms.
Thank you, Magda. So that's our partner in Cambodia, the Ministry of Women's Affairs. I'll just mention that was somebody from the Department of Information. So we actually work with different departments within MOA. The assignments that Ginette did and that she's going to talk to was with a different department. But yeah, they're a key partner for us because you can imagine they're trying to promote gender equality across Cambodia, strengthen that enabling environment. So the work that she's been doing and the work that our other advisors have done have really helped to get them to communicate better and raise awareness around gender equality issues. So yeah, I hope you like that.
Great. Thank you so much, Jane. That was very interesting. I would like to open the floor for any questions. I did not see any in the chat box, I believe. I see one hand up. Judy Baldwin, please, you can unmute and ask your question. You are still muted. So let me see if I can do that for you.
There we go.
There, perfect.
I think I'm unmuted. Sorry. Thank you, Jane. Great presentation, and I fully support that model. It certainly worked for me and the work I did through Catalyst Plus in Tanzania. 2 weeks there and work on either side. One question I have is that I continue to keep in touch with them to support their resource mobilization efforts. Not an extensive amount of time, but very targeted to specific needs. Is there a timesheet that Catalyst might provide? Because you mentioned metrics, and I appreciate how important they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So and maybe our VS team can also comment further, but for our virtual assignments, we keep timesheets that we ask our advisors to fill out on a monthly basis. And so for any kind of ongoing work that you have like that, you can continue to fill those out, and they can support you. They'll check in with you usually on a monthly basis just to collect that information. We try to we're cognizant of the different ways in which our advisors and partners continue to work together. Sometimes, like I said, it's informal, and that's totally fine. Oftentimes, we'll have relationships, friendships that develop out of that. So you just have like maybe casual or informal email exchanges and stuff. What we do try to capture more closely, and again through like a timesheet, would be if there's actual additional work that's being done. So if you're just if you're just sort of keeping in touch and not actually doing additional work as an advisor with them, then that's totally fine. Doesn't necessarily need to be captured. But if there is actual work being done, yeah, that's when we try to formalize it a little bit into a virtual assignment, or we also have a format called follow-up assignments that have specific kind of ways to monitor that.
Okay, just one quick question too about Cambodia. I worked there for 2 years, and I was been sort of following the assignment listings, and apparently Cambodia is not on the list. Is it just that there aren't any active partners now?
Oh yes, we have. Yep. So we're still pretty active in Cambodia. So we opened up the program a few years ago. And there's different partners we're working with. Some of them are government partners, some of them are NGO partners. So I think if you keep looking, you'll see assignments coming up, new assignments coming up for them.
Okay, because it's not on the country list. That's the only reason I'm asking.
On my Catalyst Plus, I don't know if VS.
Oh, let me just check again now.
You mean on the general website?
On the general website, well, under assignments, and when you do a search under countries. Let me just check again.
We'll do a double check. They should be there on the website.
No, I don't see it here under assignment opportunities.
Oh, you mean
Anyhow,
active assignments that are opportunities at the moment?
So that only relates to current assignments, then that's the only reason Cambodia would show up, right?
Exactly. Under assignment opportunities, it's just going to show
assignment opportunities under general country, and then the drop-down menu with all the countries.
It's just going to show if there's any assignments in that country that we're recruiting for at the moment.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So they come and go as we have partners requesting assignments. So
Got
there
it.
may not be all countries always that we need people for.
And we hope to have more
Okay.
coming soon. So keep
Great.
checking.
Thank you, Judy. Sam Weller, I see you have your hand up. Please go ahead. You are still muted, so we'd love to hear you.
Unmute me. Okay, hi. Hi. I just wanted to ask about hybrid assignments and as opposed to phased assignments. Is there a difference? Well, there obviously is a difference, but and I've got one hybrid assignment that I'm doing right now. But that's not a phased assignment, right? Is there a distinction that you're making?
I can take this question, Jane, if you like.
Sure, yeah.
That's a good question. So yeah, in our Caribbean program, we do use the term hybrid assignments, which are very similar to the phase ones. They also have one partner, one volunteer, and at least an in-person and a virtual component. I think the main difference for them is that they have their virtual and in-person assignments ongoing. They're parallel, so their virtual assignments are usually longer. I think for the phase ones, they are more cut off in a certain time frame. That's them. It's a small difference. Otherwise, they're very similar. I think in there, because we have different programs, so we use the phased assignment terminology for the all program, accelerating women empowerment, and then for the CCADM, the Caribbean program, we use the term hybrid because that's how their program was set up. Their program is set up as so that most assignments are a hybrid assignment, and the all program has been mostly separate. So that's why it's more of a how the programs were developed. That's where the difference comes from, but it's mostly the same. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay, thanks.
Let me see. Is there anyone else who would like to ask anything? I don't see any hands up. Okay. Let me see in the chat box. Okay. So I think I have one question if there's no one else. For Jane, could you expand a little bit on which type of assignments, which type of partners this format would work well for? Because yeah, we don't do them for all our assignments. Can you expand a little bit on how you pick out partners to do a phased assignment? Which types of assignments work really well for this format?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I wonder if I might not have just as great an answer or as clear-cut an answer, because to be honest, a lot of it's just come about based on the circumstances of the partner and also the nature of the assignment work itself. So it's been working really well. For example, we've done several phased assignments with MOA, with the Ministry of Women's Affairs, but we've also done them with our NGO partners. And a lot of it, I would say is sort of more driven by the work that needs to be done. Also, sometimes our partners can't necessarily commit to 2 weeks in country full time with the advisor, because they have other projects that they need to be working on. And so when we parse it out over different phases, then it sort of allows, again, what I was mentioning in terms of like the flexibility, because it allows them to start working with a partner on maybe certain aspects of the work that they want to do, but where they don't necessarily need to be face-to-face in person for the full day or whatever. And that way they can sort of organize and manage the work and their time in terms of what makes sense, what can be done virtually versus what can be done in country. So it is a little bit circumstantial, but so far we've found, I think we've also worked with a university partner where it's worked well. So I think, I would say there's not a particular partner profile where it's ideal.
Great, thank you. Yeah. I see we have time for one quick last question. Wahida, if you'd like to go, we'll try to keep it short so that we can continue to Ginette's presentation. And again, you will have to unmute first.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
presentation, and I think it's a wonderful idea to do the hybrid. I hope my question is very quick. A response is, I have an assignment that it seems as though it was sort of, it is a hybrid assignment, so or a phased assignment, virtual and in person in Vietnam. But do you foresee that, like in my assignment situation, there was another CA advisor did one component of this, and so it sort of got then my component now is sort of a phased approach. Although I know you set the parameter is like one partner, one CA, do you foresee sort of a similar more of that similar where, you know, CAs might be doing back to back, like, or doing tag teaming post one, like does one phase of it and then another phase another CA does, even though it's both in virtual and in country? Mine's Vietnam.
Yeah, and I'm that's one of my program countries, so I'm familiar with that. And I'm happy to meet you actually, because I know you've been working with our in-country team, and you're going to be going to work with our partners soon. So it's nice to meet you, Wahida. Yeah, so that's a really great question. Also, and again, I would say that it's going to be a bit more circumstantial. So we've had some examples, some cases where maybe we started working with one CA and a partner on a particular assignment, and then, you know, in some cases the work evolved into something that required further support, but maybe that particular CA wasn't necessarily available to continue working with them. We've had situations where maybe a CA was initially going to travel to work with the partner, but their circumstances changed, but they wanted to continue working, you know, doing this assignment. So we kind of transformed it into virtual format. And then, you know, for the remainder of the work, it made sense for the partner to continue building on it, but in country with somebody who was available to travel. So yeah, I think there's always going to be opportunities, I think, where we try to build long-term relationships with our partners, right? And try to support them throughout, I guess, different, I don't want to say phase again, but like if they're doing a piece of work, if they're developing a strategy, you know, we want to support them all through from the beginning till the very end. And sometimes that might require different advisors who can offer different support in different areas along the way. It might have to do just with scheduling, depending who's available, depending on when the partner is available as well. So just lining all of those pieces up. So I can definitely see cases in the future where we might have different CAs working with the same partner and building upon the work that each other have done, or, you know, that the previous CA has done.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, no problem.
Great, thank you for all those questions. I'd like to move on to Ginette's presentation. So I'd like to quickly introduce Ginette Johnston, our Catalyste Plus advisor of today. Ginette is an experienced presenter and facilitator who has worked in Canada, the US, and Europe. And as a volunteer advisor for Catalyste Plus, she's completed over 20 assignments in countries like Ethiopia, Tanzania, and the Philippines. She holds a BA in psychology and a Master's of Education in Adult Education and certificates in volunteer management and business administration. She specializes in organizational and board development. Ginette has served as executive director of a volunteer center and owned Johnston Training and Consultation for 15 years. She's also the author of several books on governance and board development. So over to you, Ginette. We're excited to hear about your experience.
Thank you. It's quite a pleasure to be able to do this with you. I will just share my presentation. I think what you will find is that I will be echoing a lot of what you've heard Jane say in terms of the assignment, how it worked, and what my experiences was. So as Jane mentioned, I did some work with MOA, the Ministry of Women's Affairs. I was working with the Department of Gender Equity. So that'll be the sort of the bulk of the thing that I will be able to share with you. In fact, actually, I sort of involved in two assignments. One of them is the one in Cambodia that Jane talked to you a little bit about. This one had to do with gender equality and had a number of different deliverables and components that I will sort of share with you in a few minutes. And it happened, the in-country part of this happened in June. We started earlier with a virtual part and then finished that. And we're in the second virtual part at this time. I've also just starting one with St. Lucia, part of the Caribbean program. And it's with the Department of Home Affairs and Gender Equity. And I will also sort of give you a little bit more detail about that one, although I don't have too much at this point because it's really new. So let me tell you a bit about Cambodia. It was really a very, very nice experience. It was in 3 phases. As Jane has said, a virtual one, an in-country one, and a virtual one after that. We're in the process of doing the 3rd one at this point. The purpose of the Cambodian was to do capacity building for gender policy formulation. And as often is the case, this sort of like doesn't really explain the whole picture in terms of what they were looking for. But essentially the deliverables were looking at developing a gender policy so in this case, the policy was to be the internal policy for the royal government of Cambodia. So it had to sort of cover all the things that would be in different departments, and we had to take into consideration how each department would handle this policy. So they had started some work on the policy formulation, and I sort of had it at the beginning during the first virtual part. We critiqued it, worked on it, developed it a bit more, and then worked on it even in more detail when I was there in person. And there's still some work going on with it, although my understanding now is that they're almost ready for approval. So that's quite exciting. The other thing, there was 3 workshops added to that. And one of them was on gender mainstreaming, one of them on gender analysis, and one on how to formulate policy. So in each of these cases, what they wanted to do was have people within the ministry, several departments within the ministry, able to look at, able to take a workshop and deliver it to other partners, other ministries, regional governments, and so on. So in this case, we changed the order of what we were doing a little bit from what Jane had mentioned and what had been in the request. Since we were going to deliver the workshops when I was in country, a lot of the workshop development, deciding on the learning objectives and so on, all of that happened in the first one. So here's well, some pictures actually to share with you about what it was like. So this one here is actually one side of the training room and the other side of the training room, and that's the entrance to the Ministry of Women's Affairs. Wonderful place, really nice building. But let me tell you a little bit more about sort of the phases. So the phase 1 really consisted, as you would guess, with a number of Zoom meetings that did a lot to clarify the expectations and work quite specifically on the development of the policy. So we did a lot of going back and forth around what they were writing, what I would critique, what they would suggest, and so on. We also took that opportunity to do a needs assessment of those individuals who would be facilitating the workshops. Actually did kind of like 2 different needs assessment. One was around their own perceptions and knowledge and ability around gender equality, gender mainstreaming, and gender analysis. And the other one was around more specifically targeted to their facilitation skills, how much training they had done and what to include, because a 4th workshop that was included was a train the trainer, so that we would be able to help them learn how to facilitate the workshops that we developed. And finally, we did some work around what we wanted to include in the workshops, what the learning objectives might be, what the design might be, how long they would last, and so on. So that was all done in the first virtual phase. Phase 2 was really more the practical application, if you will. So we did refine the policy, worked a lot on the policy in terms of what they wanted in it, what maybe they could add to it, and so on. And we also talked about how they would disseminate it, how they would implement it. There was a big emphasis on how they would implement and put that policy into practice. The biggest part of the in-country was the delivery of workshops. And as I said, so we developed 3 workshops that the in-house facilitator would be developing. And then we did a train the trainer around them. So the first 3 were just really basically delivering the workshop so that they could experience it and get familiar with the content. And then after those 3 workshops, there was the a workshop on how to develop policy, a workshop on gender mainstreaming, and a workshop on gender equality. And then we did a 4-day session on how you would go about developing that or delivering that. And also we worked a lot on sort of the technical part of developing a workshop, because it was felt that they would want to alter that. They would want to be able to customize it to their own needs, and also use those skills to maybe develop new workshops that they might want to offer. And also during this time, we had obviously a debrief meeting at the end saying, okay, what's left to do? What do we need to keep doing in phase 3? So phase 3, which we're currently in, as a matter of fact, we've had just 1 or 2 meetings, really had to do with the feedback and consultation around what had happened and what we needed to alter and change. We're putting in some mechanisms to do sort of feedback and coaching meetings with the trainers so that they can share what's working well for them, what they might want to alter, and giving them maybe a little bit more strategies and so on in terms of handling the delivery of the workshop. And also at that part, we're going to do a more formal second phase evaluation on the training that we did to see how well the material was received and was learned. So that's what we did in the 3 phases. So as I said, we're still in the progress, and we'll see how it goes for the next part. In terms of St. Lucia, as I said, we're still developing the work plan. It will be 3 phases. We might have some flexibility around there. There's obviously going to be a little bit of a virtual piece at the beginning where we sort of define stuff. But one of the major deliverables, as you would see, is quite a big needs assessment, where they're hoping to have group sessions and focus groups. If that is a major piece of the needs assessment, that might have to happen in country earlier so that we develop sessions that are suitable for the group that we're aiming it at. The purpose of this one assignment is dignity at work. So kind of quite similar to Cambodia in terms of developing a policy on gender mainstreaming for the protective service. So protective services are police, fire, border. I think that's it. Police, fire, border. I might be missing one. So they're looking at doing a little bit more here, not so much on mainstreaming, but on sensitization, getting the people in these fairly male-dominated fields to understand a little bit more about gender equality and the impact that it has on the work that they do. So the deliverables for this one are the gender analysis, helping them develop, again, a policy with here an emphasis on sexual harassment because they've had an issue with that. Also developing and delivering some sensitization training and some guidelines for complaints commission. So if there are complaints around sexual harassment and so on, they have a formal way to address those complaints. All right. Oh, a few more pictures of Cambodia because it's such a beautiful place. And we had so much fun going there. They were very hospitable and nice. So the one on the left here is the Russian market, which is huge and was right around where I was staying, right around the corner. So it was quite handy. And then the Mekong River with the traditional boat on it. And finally, one of the fun things is I learned about all kinds of new fruit that I never knew existed before. One of them being this mangosteen. So just to share a little bit, some of that personal piece. So those were the 2 assignments, and I'm happy to answer more specific questions if you have, but I'd like to just sort of talked a little bit about what I see from the VA perspective as the benefits to this. What Jane said about getting to know the partner better is absolutely right on the ball. I mean, I've done a lot of assignments where you kind of do a little bit of prep, you go in for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and come back out. And you feel like by the time you're leaving, you're just starting to get to know who the partner is. You're just starting to really understand where they're going and their needs. So this really gives you an opportunity to get to know them, to get to, again, as Jane was saying, develop really good relationships, become a lot more comfortable. They become a lot more comfortable with you. Some of you who've done a lot of assignments will know that sometimes when you go in country, the partners are sort of iffy about who you are, what you're going to do, how you're going to handle it. So doing this kind of like virtual at the beginning really helps you sort of set that tone and develop that relationship so that it's much more smooth. One of the things I particularly like about this is you kind of see a project through the end, right? So you get to help design it at the beginning and then deliver a piece of it. And then you keep with it until sort of it's completed. So you get to see the whole progress, not just coming in for a piece of it or delivering a workshop or doing some working sessions or explaining some concepts, but you actually see them implement them, take them through, work out the kinks. So it's a really much more fulfilling from that perspective because you get the whole spectrum there. And then finally, and again, something that's really nice is you get to see the impact and difference that you made. And you don't always get to see that with sort of the 2 or 3 week in-country assignment or even virtual assignment where you sort of get people going, get them interested, and then you leave, right? Because your piece is done. And you don't get to see really a lot of times how it's all going to end. So this really makes a difference in terms of this. Of course, there are some issues, not main ones, I would say, but things to be noted. I think this need to be sensitive to local culture, I think is true of any assignment you do in any other country. Whether it's a sensitive topic like gender equity or developing a monitoring and evaluation system. It's really important to sort of get to know the culture and what the factors are in the culture that will influence the progress and the work that you're trying to do. And to me, that's always a big issue in terms of really making that a priority. For Cambodia, to me, language was an issue. For a number of reasons. When we did the in virtual, it wasn't so bad because most of the people who were on the policy development course that I was policy development team that I was working with spoke English quite well. It came into more of a problem when we were delivering the workshops because in that case, a lot of the people in the sessions didn't understand English. And so we had to have a translator, and that's always, to me, an added complication, especially. So it was funny with this one because for the first part, we had a translator from the organization, so not a professional translator. And then for the other part, we had a professional translator, and the difference was huge. So my recommendation there is always ask for a professional translator, especially for delivering workshops. The time difference, that's a minor issue, but it was fun because they are 11 hours ahead of us. So their 10 o'clock in the morning is my 9 o'clock at night and vice versa. So it was either very early meetings or very late meetings, but you deal with. And finally, one of I think the pitfalls is that because you're going to be spending all this time with this one partner, it takes away that little bit of sense of urgency to get it done. You know that you're going to have lots of time, you're going to have time to work more. There's flexibility around how long the virtual assignments are. So you kind of need to work at it to make sure that it keeps going. And that's true, I think, as well from the partner's point of view, because of course they have all their other priorities to deal with besides this particular project. So it's easy if it's virtual for that to maybe get set aside or get pushed to later. So you really need to be on top of making sure that it's ongoing and progressive in terms of that happening. So just some final conclusions. One of them, it really is a rewarding experience. Like I said, you get to know the partner so much better, and it's so much more rewarding to work with them on that basis. As far as I'm concerned, I think it leads to greater impact because you're able to take the partner through a whole process as opposed to just one piece of it. And that to me is important. And you see more of the results. So it's really nice to get through that whole spectrum. So I know that Jane said that usually it's always virtual, in-country virtual. I don't know how much flexibility there is around that, but sometimes it, like in terms of the St. Lucia, where I need to do the needs assessment first, I think there would obviously be a lot of free assignment work, but it might be useful to go and get know the partner before you actually do a lot of the development work. That's it. So I hope I didn't bore you too much. Thank you for listening. And if you want to contact me about any of it and how my experience went, you're welcome to do that. So thank you. That's it.
Wonderful, Ginette. Thank you. That was very interesting. I really like to see two examples and very good tips that you gave us. So I'd like to open the floor for any questions. I didn't see any in the chat box, so feel free to raise your hands if you have any question, if you'd like to ask anything, any details, any more questions about the culture that you you encountered, or maybe for me to start. You gave a lot of tips, but is there sort of one main takeaway, one main tip that you would give to advisors who are gonna start a FACE assignment?
Do some research on the country. I think that would be my main thing. Find out about the country, find out about the culture, get to know what the cultural and societal issues are that are going to impact the work that you do, because it always has an impact no matter what your topic is. And if you go in there aware of what some of those issues might be, you'll be better prepared to do a good job.
That's a very good tip. I would say for most assignments, definitely.
Yeah, it's not just for virtual, for sure. Yeah. So somebody just asked for contact information. Do you want to just put that in the chat? Shall I put that in the chat box? Or do you want to do that maybe, Magda?
Absolutely. We will also share the presentations from both Jane and Ginette, so her contact information will be in the presentation that we share with you after the meetup today.
I can see that Rebecca Chalmers is interested in asking a question, but internet is unstable, so we'll just wait for that to pop up in the chat box. In the meantime, is there anything that you will take from your Cambodia experience to your St. Lucia experience?
Oh, almost all of it. Yeah, sort of in terms of, sort of the process and just understanding how all the pieces fit together, the continuity from the first virtual through the country. And it's all really, really important to sort of put that all together. I think one of the things was Jane mentioned sort of the work plan, being able to do one work plan for all 3 assignments. That's really valuable because it helps you figure out where you're going and gives the whole process a good thing. So we did that for the most part. We did that for Cambodia. For St. Lucia, I think my intention is to develop it even more through the 3 phases.
This is also part of our streamlining process on our side, I think, on our end, to figure out what the best way is, and also to make sure that we still adhere to our reporting guidelines and requirements.
Yeah.
Jane, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Puck, I just noticed that Rishi Kumar left a comment about his experience. I'm wondering if
wonderful.
it might be nice to read it out.
I cannot find it right now. Would you mind sharing it?
Yeah, sure. So Rishi Kumar said during the COVID period, he did 16 weeks virtual assignment for Peru. It was fun and very rewarding for all of them. Now I see you're moving to have virtual plus in person. This will add value. So thank you so much, Rishi, for sharing that.
Yeah, we are really hoping to, depending on which country and which partner, to develop more of these FACE assignments, as they are showing very useful. Okay. Wonderful. I don't think if there's no other questions coming in, then we will be ending our official part of the meetup today. Let me see. I do have one last thing I would like to share with you before we all leave today. I would just like to spotlight for our active advisors the use of My Catalyst Plus. So most of you who are active advisors will be familiar with our portal, My Catalyst Plus. This is your go-to spot, your portal to search for assignment opportunities. And I just wanted to highlight that in your profile at the top, so you can click, you can always adjust and update your resume and your roles. And this will help you find assignments that match your expertise. So just make sure to keep those updated because they will help the recruiters to find you. And in addition, you can set, I don't know if everyone is aware, but you can set email notifications to receive in your email inbox weekly, bi-weekly, monthly assignment opportunities that match your expertise. So be sure to update if you haven't done so. Change your preferences, update your role and experiences, and that will help everyone. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, wonderful. I think this is the end, so we can stop the recording. This is the end of our formal